Thank you everyone for being here, guests, exhibitors, presenters, organizations. This is a first for LexHab, the Lexington Housing Assistance Board Incorporated in Lexington. Mike Law, who was the transition coordinator here at the high school, and now he's over at Hastings. It was his initial call to me about a year ago that we'd like to get the information out about affordable housing and resources here in Lexington. So this is what initiated the brainstorm to this initial inaugural event tonight. So thank you all for being here. My name is Perline Varjabedian. I am the housing director of the Lexington Housing Assistance Board in Lexington. And I pass on to...
I'm Liz Rust. I'm the director of the Regional Housing Services Office. So we support Lexington as one of our member communities with affordable housing services.
And I'm Melinda Walker. I'm on the Board of Commissioners of the Lexington Housing Authority.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'd like to start the panel off. For those of you who don't know, that if you'd like to refer back to information on your seats, some of the seats have some of our PowerPoint and the information that Melinda is going to be speaking about tonight. But in addition, LexMedia has been kind to also have it up and running in a few days on their YouTube channel. So if you'd like to go back and rewind and sort of listen to what you've heard this evening, please feel free to do so. I'd like to start the evening up by inviting Elizabeth to speak about the regional housing services.
So I'm Liz Rust, as I mentioned before. So I'm the director of the Regional Housing Services Office. So this is our service model. We have we're a municipal collaboration of 10 communities. So you can see them here with Acton, Bedford, Concord, Lexington, Lincoln, Maynard, Natick, Sudbury, Wayland, and Weston. So it's really, you and your neighbors. And we provide any number of affordable housing services to those communities, both compliance or working with affordable housing that already exists. So these would be, rental or ownership units that people are already occupied, or helping people get into new units, or helping developers create new units and helping the town in those efforts, as well as administering some programs around that. So I thought I would just provide an overview of when we talk about affordable housing in Lexington, what is it that we're talking about? So there's all different ways of measuring affordable housing, but one way that's common is what they call the subsidized housing inventory. And that is the state. They have a lot of rules about what counts, but it's consistent across all municipalities. So we use that even though it's flawed in its counting. But on that measure, Lexington has 1,341 units, which is 10.95%. And you can see here, well, you can't really, but you can see the text there of how it breaks down, and the pie chart has all the special colors. Very few affordable ownership, so 2%, so that turns into 33 units of ownership. So most of the affordable housing in Lexington is rental, and you might already know that. So just to stop for 1 second, I know we were trying to talk about whether we were going to do this, right? So raise your hand. Like we're trying to figure out who's here, right? It's great. There's a lot of people here. So who's here that is like what I might call a housing advocate or involved in affordable housing in Lexington in some way? Come on, I know there's more of you. Yeah, there you go. Right, that's good. And how many people are in affordable housing or in housing in Lexington or looking for housing in Lexington? And then there's just a bunch of other people who are interested in what we have to say. So excellent, right. I didn't really ask those questions properly. So we also have 25% of the affordable housing, which is public or nonprofit. And that would really be these two people who are going to speak about that primarily. So LexHab and the Housing Authority. We have private affordable housing, that's 19% of the units. And then we have this big number, 54% are market rate units. And that's just how they do the counting. They do, like, this would be like in Avalon where there's a certain number of affordable housing, but they count all of those units in Avalon or those private rental. So that's just the landscape of the affordable housing in Lexington. So this slide, okay, so here we go. We've got the pictures in here. So I tried to put so many things in the pictures, like, let's see, had to put the text on top of the picture. So this is a little snippet from our website showing what kind of resident services. So we do a lot of things. I can talk about many topics, but today it's really about resident services. How can and what is it that we do, or what kind of resources do we have to help people with whatever their needs are? So we administer grant programs for some of our member communities. So we do some rental assistance. And in Lexington, we're just rolling out a tenant-based rental program for first, security, and last month rent using some federal funding programs. We provide small grant programs for some communities. These would be for owners, and I know the trust is considering this. You have a new affordable housing trust that's just getting started, and they have a lot of great ideas of how they can increase and improve the affordable housing and the offerings in town. So I think you'll be hearing more about them over the years to come. We also hold lotteries. People might know that term for affordable housing. You get affordable housing sometimes through a lottery. So that's usually for new construction. And it's the requirement of the state, and they want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity equally to get into that particular housing opportunity, right? So if you didn't do it that way, it'd be like, okay, here's a great unit, it's coming online, and the first one who puts in that application gets it, right? And like someone runs there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and like that's not really that fair, right? Like, because what if you come in at 10:30, you missed? So the lottery means that everyone comes in at the same time, or whatever, like 1 or 2 weeks or a month, and then is pulled out of the hat. So it's a much more transparent and fair way to do it, even though it has its own ups and downs. Like many rules, there's always pluses and minuses to all the rules. And they hold the lotteries for both, here I note, resales of affordable ownership units or new construction, as well as new rental construction, new rental opportunities. So LexHab has a lottery process, and this is just how it's done. So we offered some of those services. We also do trainings and information sessions for homeowners on a post-purchase. We did a tenant a training last year on tenants' rights, and we had some people come talk about that. The lawyer came about what that process is and what are those tenant rights. And then we have our website that has a lot of information. So, different resources, and a lot of the information, and maybe, the great service providers out in the hall today, they have a lot of programs that you can tap into. And then there's organization like ours, like that just has the list of them, and then the links that you go here and you go there, but you can come to, to our website to find out what those are. And we don't administer all those programs or all that, but we can provide some referral resources. So this is a rental, the state search engine, I call it. I don't know, this is really Lexington-focused information here. But at the state level, there's a website called Housing Navigator, which is very well populated and very well received. And it has all of the affordable housing rental properties for lease in the state. And so that they're listed there. It's very modern. So it's, like the website and all this. It has some nice pictures. And it tells you the unit sizes and what the rents are. And you can click on through to get on the waiting list. Now, for most of the properties in the state, the individual property owners have their own waiting list. So, you have the Lexington Housing Authority, they'll have their waiting list, LexHab will have theirs, Avalon will have theirs, like everyone has their own waiting list. So you need a central resource like this so that you can go to each of the properties. And the other thing I was going to mention is when we talk about rental, just that people probably know this, there's two kinds of rents that we talk about. One are rents that are based on your income. So the provider looks at your income and says, 30%, 27, 35, whatever percentage they use of your income is going to be your rent. There are other properties that have a below market fixed rent. And no matter what your income is, that's what you're going to pay. They might have a minimum income, but so there's those two, and those are both called affordable housing. But they're very different from the tenant perspective, just so that you know that. So I have a little box there, like to prepare, for a lot of these programs, to prepare for them, to know your finances. So you need to really have your income, like what is your income? What are your assets? Like get those documents together, and then you can search for opportunities, and it's much clearer to you, like what's going to be in your price range. The next slide just talks about other rental resources, right? So Metro West, Metro Housing Boston is the regional area that services Lexington, and they have all sorts of services like raft or things from the state level. Those funds will flow through Metro Boston to you. Like if you're a homeowner, if you're getting fuel assistance, that's where you'll pick that up. Of course, the Section 8 voucher, which is great. Like, and there's a waiting. Did I put the waiting list there? Yeah, there's the welcome to the waiting list. It's a very small box for a very long list, I'd have to say. And then there's this other program that I'll just mention called Snowmass. And that's a very specialized and unique program. This is for tenants who have vouchers, and it would give them the subsidy to pay to get a market rate apartment. And it's really designed for people to come into higher price communities, high opportunity communities like Lexington, where the rents are so high. Usually the Section 8 vouchers pay what they call fair market rent. That's the most that they'll pay, and that's FMR, and that's here, and the market rents are going to be here. So if you just because you have a voucher, you can't really afford to pay those market rents. So this program will provide an additional subsidy for that. It's about ownership. So the state search engine for the ownership is called My Home, Mass Home, My Ma Home, and that's what it looks like. And so there's some QR codes here. I learned how to do the QR codes making the slides today. So in terms of preparing to be a homeowner, there's a few things there, like taking a first-time homebuyer class, researching mortgage products. There's a lot of down payment assistance funds available now, like a lot. We're doing a lot of closings this month, and people are getting $30,000, $35,000 to help them with the down payment assistance. Obtaining a pre-approval, that's really the key there. And again, it goes to knowing your finances and your assets. What price of home can you afford? And then once you have that, you can start to search for opportunities. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Melinda Walker, Commissioner at the Lexington Housing Authority. Melinda?
Hi. To begin with, on behalf of my fellow commissioners and the Executive Director of the Lexington Housing Authority, Kayleen Foley, I want to thank LexHab for inviting us to this event. Now, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation this evening. I'm going to be giving you a lot of information, and I just hope that you'll be able to grasp the general sense of what I'm talking about. It's going to be hard for you to remember all the acronyms and so forth, but I do have a short handout called Public Housing Resources, which you can pick up if you haven't already done so, which provides some links for some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. The topic of affordable and public housing is a very complicated one, and it can be very confusing to understand the various organizations, both in Lexington and beyond, that provide housing. I'm going to give you first a little background about the history of federal and state public housing, acquaint you briefly with the Housing Authority in Lexington, and then finally I'm going to review some of the resources that are available to individuals and families to apply for public housing. The Housing Act of 1937, entitled the Public Housing Law, committed the federal government to accept responsibility for providing support to meet the shelter needs of those citizens who were unable to afford housing in the private market. Today, there are over 3,300 public housing authorities across the country. The goal of these housing authorities is to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing for low-income families, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, is responsible for the administration of all the federal public housing programs. In 1948, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts set up state public housing. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EHOC, formerly known as DHCD, regulates all the state public housing programs. It works with municipalities, local housing authorities, nonprofit organizations, and development partners to provide affordable housing options, financial assistance, and other support to Massachusetts tenants. The Lexington Housing Authority was established by the Board of Selectmen in 1964. We administer both state and federal public housing programs in Lexington. Our federal portfolio includes Countryside Village, which is a development with 61 bedroom units for the elderly and disabled, and 17 scattered single-family home sites. We also administer 67 housing vouchers, commonly known as Section 8. Our state portfolio includes Greeley Village with 101 one-bedroom units, and Vinebrook Village with 48 one-bedroom units. And we also manage 10 Massachusetts Rental Voucher Programs, otherwise known as MRVP, which is another rental assistance program for residents. We manage 4 residences for handicapped individuals, which are under the jurisdiction of the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. We also own 7 condominium units and 1 duplex that are considered to be affordable units. As you probably know, Massachusetts is in the top 3 most expensive states in the country for housing. This means that the fair market rents are very high, which in turn means the demand for affordable and public housing is also very high. Although there are long wait lists for both state and federal public housing, it is very important that you fill out as many applications as possible to increase your chances to find a suitable home for your family. All of the applications for both federal and state programs are available online. However, if you have any questions about the applications, you can call the Lexington Housing Authority office and speak to someone that will try to help you. One of the first things to keep in mind about your family's eligibility for public housing is the term Area Median Income, or AMI. The Department of Housing and Urban Development sets income limits that determine eligibility for assisted housing programs, including public housing, project-based vouchers, Section 8 vouchers, housing for the elderly, and housing for persons with disabilities. Every year, HUD recalculates the income limits based on the median family income estimates and the fair market rents for each metropolitan area. We are in the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy, New Hampshire metro area. Your household income and household size would be used to determine your eligibility for certain programs. For example, to be eligible for a unit which is set aside as extremely low income, you could not earn more than $31,000 for a one-bedroom household, a one-person household, and $35,000 for a two-person household, and so forth. There are 2 major federal public housing programs. First, there is the Section 8 Choice Voucher Program. Since housing assistance is provided on behalf of the family or an individual, housing voucher holders can find their own housing, including in single-family homes, townhouses, or apartments. A tenant can select a unit that rents for the amount determined to be comparable to other unassisted units in the area, and which would result in the family paying no more than 40% of their adjusted monthly income towards rent and utilities. There's an online application that you can fill out, which I have on the public housing resources sheet. The second kind of federal public housing is the portfolio of public housing properties, and they come in all sizes and types, from scattered single-family homes to high-rise apartments for the elderly. HUD provides technical and professional assistance in planning, developing, and managing these developments. The lower income limits for federal public housing are at 80% of AMI, and the very low incomes are at 50% AMI. Applications for the federal aided housing are available through the Lexington Housing Authority online, and you can also get a print version of the application at the office if you wish to do so. Massachusetts is one of only 4 states, alongside New York, Connecticut, and Hawaii, that has state-funded housing. The Massachusetts system is by far the biggest state-funded housing system in the country, with more units than the other 3 states combined. As I said before, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities is the state agency responsible for the administration of all state programs and services. State-aided public housing includes low-income families, elderly, and handicapped housing in buildings which are owned by local housing authorities in 240 cities and towns across the state. Low-income households are typically eligible for state-aided public housing if they earn no more than 80% of the area median income. If you or a family member are 60 years of age or over, or you are a non-elderly handicapped person, you may qualify for the Elderly Handicapped Program. To apply for state-aided family and elderly handicapped public housing, you must complete a common housing application for Massachusetts public housing, which is called CHAMP. CHAMP applications are available online or on paper from the Housing Authority. Local housing authorities have an obligation to provide reasonable accommodations and reasonable modifications on account of a disability if an applicant or resident or a household member is limited by the disability and for this reason needs an accommodation or a modification to their unit. Massachusetts also has a rental voucher program and it's commonly known as the MRVP program. It provides tenant and project-based rental subsidies to those who are eligible. The tenant-based voucher, which is known as a mobile voucher, is assigned to a participant and is valid for any housing unit that meets the standards of the state sanitary code. The tenant pays 30% of their net monthly income towards rent, and the state pays the rest of the payment standard to the landlord. Project-based vouchers are assigned to a specific housing unit or development. The owner can rent these units to a program-eligible tenant who receive the subsidies just for as long as they live in that property. Most mobile vouchers are offered to eligible applicants on local waiting lists, which can be very lengthy due to the great demand that I mentioned before. As of today, the MRVP waiting lists are open, which means that if you go to fill out a CHAMP application, you can also fill out an MRVP voucher application as well at the same time. There are many other resources available for people looking for housing in Massachusetts. I don't have time to go through all of them, but I want to mention one remarkable nonprofit organization, the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, which people refer to as CHAPA. Their mission is to encourage production and preservation of housing that is affordable to low and moderate income families and to foster diverse and sustainable communities through planning and community development. Their website includes links to several of their online publications, including one that may be of interest to some of the people in the audience this evening, called Housing Search Guide for People with Disabilities in Massachusetts. In closing, I'm going to read a short excerpt from this guide because I think that the suggestions are helpful for anyone who is looking for housing. So here are the steps. Consider your needs, list your housing needs, figure out what type of housing would be best for you, figure out if you're eligible for subsidized housing, get help with locating housing, gather all the information you need to apply for housing and vouchers, request help or reasonable accommodations, know your housing rights, follow up on applications, and secure an apartment by ensuring that the unit meets your needs. I think that that's some great advice for everyone who's looking for an apartment or for looking for housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, the Lexington Housing Assistance Board Incorporated. Many of you have heard of us referred to as LexHab here in Lexington. We were founded in 1983, chartered by the town of Lexington to address the growing concern for housing affordability here in Lexington. If you look at our first slide, our original committee here up in the black and white picture there, and our present board down here. We serve families and individuals whose incomes are no more than 80% of the area median income of the Boston area. As Melinda mentioned, there are various median incomes. Some of our properties that are regulated vary from 60 to 50 to 70 in time, all depending on the type of property. Our rents vary according to the income and the size as per our LexHab policy and regulations. Our governing board presently is made up of 7 volunteer members. Our board members have always been volunteer, from various expertise, from architects to lawyers to business owners, and very dedicated individuals here in Lexington. You can see here that this bottom picture, I'd like to point out there, was one of our most recent developments, known as Farmview, located at 34A and 34B Lowell Street. LexHab built that from the ground up. We're very proud of it, and it's one of our newer properties. So LexHab mission, and has always been, to provide and implement alternatives for the provision of affordable, safe, and comfortable housing for low and moderate income households. It's always been our mission. We care about our tenants, we care about our community, we care about those who are seeking housing. I'd like to quote an excerpt from one of our present tenants who has children of special needs. She writes, "I have 2 children with special needs. This town has many resources for families like ours. To be in a community that supports is the cherry on top. Lexington has been very welcoming," and that has indeed been. I hear this quite often from many of our tenants, and we are thankful to the community of Lexington. Affordable housing in Lexington, housing development and management. Next slide, sorry. We have the Lexington Housing Assistance Board, we have the Lexington Housing Authority, we have private for-profit developers, various complexes. Avalon has joined us today, such as Avalon and Katahdin Woods also offer low-income housing options. Private landlords, they do work with your Section 8 vouchers. So that's something that a lot of people have asked me, do private landlords work with vouchers? And yes, they do. LexHab presently has 80 units. Our total count of tenants is 220 people and growing. There are various ways to apply. As Liz mentioned, there are lotteries which take place for our regulated units. Those are biannual, every 2 years. And we can download our application directly at our website, which is lexhab.org. You cannot apply online, but you can download the application and either mail or drop it into our offices, as well as fax. We also have a town employee housing program that we work closely with the Town of Lexington Human Resources Department. It's a very small program, limited, but we do work with them as part of our town employee housing program for those employed by the Town of Lexington. We have acquired scattered units over the years throughout Lexington. We're actively looking for new properties and land to build for the much needed affordable housing here. Mix of single family and multifamily, 1 to 6 units, 1 to 4 bedrooms. We presently have 3 ADA compliant units with an additional few that contain semi-ADA walk-in showers and bathroom spacing, and always looking to increase that. We have a 24-hour answering service for all of our maintenance concerns and emergency concerns. Next slide. Process to apply to LexHab. So the first step in applying to LexHab would be either through the lottery, when a lottery takes place for our regulated units, or to submit an application directly to our offices, either by fax, mail, email. My business cards are out front. You submit an application. The application is reviewed for its completeness. It is then date stamped and entered into our waiting list and our system. If the application is not complete, we do contact you indicating what is missing, and we ask that you return it within 10 days. When a unit does become available based on the waiting list, this is our LexHab units. Based on the waiting list, the applicant is contacted, a notice of screening packet is sent, and the documents need to be returned within 10 days. We perform here at LexHab, we perform our verifications thoroughly. They include Corey Sories, credit checks, a realm of different tools for verification. If you are found eligible, we show you the unit, we present you with an offer letter, and we ask that you respond either deny or accept within 5 days of that offer. We don't ask for first or last month security deposits or rent at LexHab. That's something that we don't do. In addition to that, you do apply for our regulated units. As Liz mentioned, there is a lottery that's done through, at present time, through Metro West, and that's done biannually, and mainly with our newer properties as in existing regulated units. I know that Melinda talked about something that's very important to a few of us here in the audience, and something that often comes up to us in housing is what a reasonable accommodation is. A reasonable accommodation is for an individual with a disability who has a right to a reasonable accommodation in a housing provider's rules, policies, practices, or services, when such accommodations may be necessary to afford the disabled individual an equal opportunity to use and enjoy their dwelling. Examples of reasonable accommodations: a tenant with a disability who has trouble walking can request an accommodation of a housing provider's parking policy by requesting an exclusive or designated parking space close to his or her apartment. A tenant whose disability requires an assistance animal — a lot of you have often heard of an emotional assistant or support animal — can request a waiver of a landlord's no pet policies. Some of these policies obviously require some backup information that you would need to provide to your landlord or homeowner. Ramping entrances, removing base cabinets, installing railings, installing grab bars in the showers, widening doorways are just a few examples of a reasonable accommodation that your landlord would be able to provide. Who does LexHab collaborate with? A lot of people don't know, well, who is LexHab? I often get a phone call. What's LexHab? Who is LexHab? We work with local housing authorities, not just the Lexington Housing Authority, but local, anywhere from here to Framingham, Malden, Boston. We work with those housing authorities. We work with the RHSO Regional Housing Services Office. We work with Section 8 and MRVP administering agencies. We work with Metro Housing and RAFT for rental assistance application. Quite often, there are times in life when you need assistance, and RAFT and Metro is there to help you when you need assistance with some of your rental needs. The Town Human Services and Social Service agencies we work with closely for those families who may need assistance in social services, including direction on rental assistance. And we also work with, we have right here, Ingrid is here from the Lexington Refugee Assistance Program. We work with them closely to assist in emergency applications. And those are just to name a few of who LexHab actually works with. We're here to help you. We are located right across from Cary Memorial Hall. That's what I have to say about LexHab. It's a wonderful organization. Small, there's only 3 of us in our offices. We have an amazing board who supports us and work closely with the town. To end tonight's event, I'd like to take a moment to thank some key players who have been dealing with our meetings for the last 6 months. This took quite a few months. I'd like to first thank Mike Law, who was the initiator with me at this event. Nicole Martins from Avalon at Lexington Hills, Miles Goldman at Avalon Bay, Andy Joint with Clean Heat Outreach Specialist LexCan, Kayleen Foley, the Executive Director of the Lexington Housing Authority, Melinda Walker, Commissioner of the Lexington Housing Authority, Ingrid Klimoff, Board Member of the Lexington Refugee Assistance Program, Mike again, Doreen Mumper from New Path, Elizabeth Rust, Regional Housing Services, Sandra Cummins with TIL, Toward Independent Living and Learning, Susan Barrett, Transportation Manager of the Town of Lexington Transportation, Gwen Jefferson, Senior Services, Michelle Califer, Senior Services, Town of Lexington, and Maggie Pierce, Sustainability and Resilience Officer with the Town of Lexington, only to name a few. There's a thank you note outside. We've had so many people participating, exhibitors. I'd like to thank you for making this inaugural event a success. Thank you very, very, very much. I'd like to thank here, I think they're still here, Andrea Teacher, our administrative assistant, Regina Brown, our accounting. I think I saw our executive director back there, Sarah Morrison. Board member Tara Mizrahi is here. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to pass it over to Mike. Our event tonight is also on Zoom, and there are some question and answers that I think may have been submitted through Zoom. We'll answer those first, and then answer your questions presented to our panel tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We've had a few technical glitches, which makes sense because that was my department. So sorry, especially for some of the sound, especially early on. But I have a few questions, a few hands raised here. It looks like our technical glitch is around the chat feature, but if anybody in the audience live has a question,
Okay.
we go there first and then
Just
and then go
raise
from
your
that.
hands if you have a question. Yes.
For the HUD application, do you have to apply every year? It says on here, I have the application here.
For HUD,
For
the CHAMP?
the Lexington Housing Assistance Board, isn't that the?
that would be
Verizon
that wouldn't be the HUD. That the HUD is Melinda can. That's on the CHAMP. That's your CHAMP application that covers. The Lexington Housing Assistance Board application is the LexHab application. And no, you do not have to apply every year. You would have to update us on any changes in your address or contact information. But once you apply, it's date stamped and entered into our waiting list in our system.
So the one that I have here, the Lexington Housing Assistance Board, that's the CHAMP?
Nope.
No,
No. What's
Go ahead,
that?
Melinda.
no, that's for LexHab.
That's the Lexington Housing Assistance Board, LexHab.
LexHab.
That's
Okay.
us.
That's you, so I already have an application, okay.
So that,
So-
if you can feel free to fill that out, turn it into us at the address on the application. But the state and federal application is on, you can find it on, there's an informational sheet maybe on your chair or outside with the website that you could go to.
Colleen, just on LexMedia, can you clarify one thing? So we have kind of two different types of units, and so some don't do this on the
Correct.
lottery. So if she submits an application to you at LexMedia and the lottery comes out, she also needs to put her name
Correct.
in every 2 years for the lottery, correct? Okay.
Right, so our lottery is biannual. And so you'd have to, on the Housing Navigator in the town, it gets announced. It's on the Regional Housing Services website. We would announce it, and you would apply through the lottery for our lottery units. The LexHab application is for our LexHab units. It is not for the lottery. So if you call me up and said, oh, I want to get into that new building on Lowell Street, that is a regulated unit. It is a lottery unit. So a LexHab application would not be able to apply for that unit. We have a mixture of different units. It's confusing. It's taken me 6 years to learn, but we do have a mixture, and I'm joking. But
So there's like two separate forms.
for LexHab, we have a lottery, which happens every 2 years. Keep your ears open. It's about to happen in the next few months. Our next lottery is going to happen. And then the LexHab application that you have would be for our non-regulated units, our privately owned LexHab units.
But it is confusing. All of them are owned by LexMedia. They just unfortunately have two different kinds of rules that they have to follow.
That's the
So
difference?
yeah, so but they're all
We're all,
we own 80 units, and some of them fall into that category and some of them fall into that. So I would submit an application to Perlene, and then as she says, look out for these notices that you'll see about lotteries and get your name in there as well.
And but that's a separate application, right?
that would be through a lottery process,
Okay,
yes.
so how do you get that application?
RHSO is what, no, you don't
No,
get the
Metro
application
West.
there. You don't get the application there, no.
No,
But
Metro
the
West.
lottery, Metro West,
Yeah.
Metro West is where you get it, but it doesn't get opened up until the lottery is actually opened.
Maybe.
So,
Where is the best place for her to look to see when that application is due?
There, Metro West is one, but offline, if you contact me, I can let you know exactly
We'll
when,
put a notification on our website also,
yes.
when the lottery is up.
but how do I apply? I apply through Metro West?
You
Yes.
would apply through Metro West, yes.
So what's the website, Metro West?
I don't know their website
I'll look it
offhand.
Maybe after this, why don't you come up and we can write that down for you?
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, there are different properties, there's different waiting lists, different programs, and each one has their own application process. So,
For the Avon and Catherine, those two sites, those are not limited for the people with the income.
You would contact Avalon and Katahdin directly. They're here tonight. Katahdin isn't, but Avalon is, and they'd be able to assist you.
So those are not limited to how much income that you.
they have both kinds. They have unlimited market rate units, plus they have ones that are limited income and lower rent. So they have both kinds. So depending on your situation, they'll help you figure out which one is best for you.
And the one that, what you call market rate, those is like control of the renting rate or something?
No, those are just market rents. So whatever
Fair
they
market.
are, right, yeah. No verification of your income, you're just paying that rent. And then they have the restricted or the affordable units that have income limits, and those have lower rents.
Next, anyone? Yes.
I have a question, I don't know if it's related to all of this, but what is the difference between Section 8 and 40B?
Can you repeat that, please?
The difference between Section 8 and 40B. So 40B is a zoning process, and so that allows the properties to be built. And Section 8 is a voucher that you have, a mobile Section 8 voucher that you have as a tenant, and allows you to live in that unit and get a subsidy for your rent. So one is related to how the building and the property got built and developed, and one is about how the tenant is able to live in the unit.
Because I've applied for some places and they've rejected me because they say I don't make enough money.
So I think what we're saying is that when I mentioned before, there are two kinds of rents. Rents that are based on income, which is Section 8, and rents that are just lower than market but are a flat rent. And those might be what you're calling 40B. So it's like, maybe it's $2,000 for the 2-bedroom apartment or something like that.
It's more like about 2,500, we'll say, for 1 bedroom, and then they don't have any Section 8s.
Right, so Section 8, you need to have the voucher, so that's a separate process that you go through. And then you
I have a Section 8.
Mhm.
I've applied for these places, and they still reject me because they say,
So I think that everyone has different individual circumstances, so I could hypothesize what it might be, but maybe, that would be an offline conversation about what it is for you.
I would like to try to explain the difference between what people think of as Section 8 vouchers and then the affordable units that are usually in private developments. It's if you are eligible for a Section 8 voucher or low-income public housing, there's a limit to how much money you can make, but you can make anything under that, like 30% of AMI. An affordable unit in a complex like maybe an Avalon building in Lexington, it's the other way around. You have to make a minimum amount of money in order to afford what's called affordable rent, and so it's different. It's a ceiling and one of it's a floor, and yeah.
I understood from the past that when they build new complexes, that a certain percentage had to be Section 8, otherwise they couldn't build them. Developers make deals with individual municipalities as to how many units are going to be affordable and at what percent AMI. That doesn't have anything to do with promising Section 8, that they will take Section 8 voucher holders. This is very complicated and hard to understand.
So I think there's a couple of things. One is, I just want to, they're really obligated to take Section 8 voucher holders, but you as the tenant you have to get the voucher, not the property to give it to you. Section 8.
I have that.
You have that.
I've had it for years.
Uh-huh.
But when I go out and try to negotiate or apply for these different places, they tell me I don't make enough money. And they're under, now they're all advertising, they're all 40Bs, so it's different now.
One thing that I think came up in this planning process that we're seeing now is this is an incredibly complicated process. We actually talked about some of the questions we're not really going to be able to answer in the moment, even though we really, really want to. But the biggest takeaway I have from this evening is I hope that everyone now knows, oh, there is this place that I can meet with and answer that question in a lot more detail. And look, now I have a face to go with that. It's not just this strange name that's on a website. So I just want to acknowledge that, yes, this is complicated to the point that some of the answers right here tonight are not super clear. And we kind of knew that going in, so I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
And it opens a much longer conversation because we all recognize this is a much longer conversation for all of us, for all of you, with hopefully with the vendors you've met tonight.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. So actually, I think that you succeeded in doing that. I mean, just to have the faces and to have even the introduction to these very dizzying sets of terms and acronyms and layers of assistance that you may not necessarily be able to have together, you know, I mean, it's dizzying, just, so I plan on coming to see you.
All three of
Mission
us?
accomplished.
I'm coming to see you, so, but I do have one specific question, which is that, so for the Section 8 voucher, if I'm currently a Lexington resident, who's renting, can I apply for a voucher to apply to my current rent, or are the places that, I mean, how does that work, and is there any detrimental effect to my landlord if he were to accept Section 8?
So Section 8 voucher holders are protected through fair housing. So if anyone experiences a situation where the landlord says, oh, I don't take Section 8 or like that's really against the law. So you can never say what landlords actually do, but I'll just tell you that they're protected very specifically in the fair housing law. When you get a Section 8 voucher, it might open up different rental opportunities than you have now. I don't really know, because that you would be able to afford higher rents based on your income. I mean, again, it's very specific to individuals and their income and how much rent and all like that. But the one thing, the limiting factor with the Section 8 is that it only will pay a certain amount. So between your amount and this, it has to be this, and some of the rents are higher. And that's what I talked about, that Snowmass product that is offered by Metro Boston. And so that's worth looking into. If it's a very narrow situation, but it's very useful for people in that situation.
Okay, because I think, you know, one of my goals is not to move. I mean, that would be really incredible to not move, because the space that we have is ideal for my children, and I have two children on IEPs. It's absolutely wonderful, and so with, you know, my dramatic change in my life circumstances, if I could remain and provide that stability to my children, that's my primary.
So as Melinda said, the key that I tell everyone is just get on all the lists, because you can always, when you come to the top of the list, you could say no, but if sometimes, and I hear a lot of times that people get into a situation where their life has changed and they need the housing now, and the lists are years long. And so it's like, oh, I should have gone on like before. And so, yeah.
And I'd like to add that sometimes those lists can be, hold yourself, anywhere from 10 to 15 years to actually get the voucher. At LexHab, some of our lists can go for 2 to 10 years, depending on the bedroom size.
I did want to raise something that I didn't bring up because I was talking mainly about the Housing Authority, but this came up about the lotteries. So the organization that handles the lotteries for LexHab is the Metro West Collaborative Development. And they are a community development corporation, and they're a nonprofit, and they build housing, but they also provide services to renters. And one of the things that they do is that they have a ready renter program. So you can go to Metro West's website and fill out an application, and you will get on a list where you will receive emails every week with listings of new affordable units that are available. The other thing that you can do at Metro West is that they run a housing clinic, and you can come to sign up for a housing clinic, and you can talk to somebody like me and try to figure out how to start your housing search. One of the things that I didn't mention in my little talk here is that when you're looking for housing, you can, because we have a housing crisis in Massachusetts, you have to widen your area. I know that we're talking tonight about services in Lexington, but you really are going to have to consider other municipalities, because we just do not have the supply of housing. We have a real problem.
One more question.
One more question, yes.
As I understood your question, she wants to stay where she is.
Right.
Yeah.
And but now use one of these vouchers.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear the answer to that.
That's, you have to apply to get the voucher.
Oh, but she could theoretically stay where she is. She doesn't have to move in order to.
She has to
qualify.
apply to get the voucher,
Yes.
which is a long it's a long wait.
Yeah,
Yes.
she can apply for
But
it,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
If
yes.
that's your answer.
Very good, yes.
Thank
Very
you
good.
very much.
Okay.
It is 6:59. We get, if there's a 1-minute quick question, otherwise I'd like to
Wrap.
close up,
Yeah.
wrap it up. You have all of our information.
One more question.
Sorry.
And it is really quick. I was just curious, on this slide, it said 1,341 units of affordable housing, but that 54% were market rate.
Yes.
Does that really mean it's more like 600 some odd
Yes.
units
That's
that are
correct.
affordable?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you very much. Told you to be quick.
Thank you. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our wonderful committee. Thank you to our supporters. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Miranda.